Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me, as always, are Eric David and Philippe Bargil. Get all the parades booked for May. The champions in Ligue 1 have been revealed. I bet you'll never be able to guess who came out on top in the end. But before we discuss the earliest title win ever in French football, here are your headlines. Monaco were once again responsible for getting the league and weekend up and running, and they responded with another exciting, if somewhat disappointing, 2-2 draw. A brace from Wagner Love being cancelled out by a late Diego Rigonato equaliser at home to Reims. Saturday's early match saw Marseille follow Reims in snatching a point on the road, Mauricio Isla levelling just after the intermission, as Majid Waris having given the host Lorient the lead in a match that finished 1-1. In the multiplex, Nice took advantage of Monaco's stumble with a 2-0 win at Montpellier, while Guingamp tumbled slumping Saint-Etienne by the same score at their Roudourou. Lille were surprise winners over Bastia in Corsica, Sofiane Boufal and Ibrahim Amadou on the score sheet before Gaël Danic scored a late consolation in a 2-1 win for the visitors. In Ajaccio, David Ducourtois scored the match's solitary goal to lead the hosts to a 1-0 victory over Caen. The big result, however, was Toulouse's 4-0 thrashing of Bordeaux in the Derby de la Garonne, a match which led to the sacking of Willy Sagnol. Sunday afternoon's match saw Paris Saint-Germain clinch their status as Ligue 1 champions with a resounding 9-0 victory at Troyes, a result which is a record away victory in the history of the First Division and sees the champions repeat their feat with 8 matches to spare. Zlatan Ibrahimovic led the way with 4 goals to bring his total for the season to 27. Nantes continued their push for European football, shaking off last week's thrashing by Rennes to record a comprehensive 2-0 victory over Angers. And in Sunday's grand match, a sloppy Lyon allowed Rennes to claw back a late equaliser through Jeremy Boga in a 2-2 draw, a result which leaves both sides disappointed as they chase in those Champions League places. In Ligue 2, top sides Dijon and Nancy both lost at the weekend, and Red Star, in action at the time of recording, have a chance to move 4 points clear in 4th with a win if they beat Auxerre. And remember, for all your latest news in the world of French football, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start this week for what has been a pretty spectacular week, if I must say, for Paris Saint-Germain. After advancing in the Champions League against Chelsea on Wednesday, the Parisians sealed their Ligue 1 title in record time and with a real flourish, topping it off with the biggest away victory in the history of the league. We'll start chatting with their title win, Philip. It's been expected for quite a long while now, but what a way to win it.
Yeah, you did mention it. The scoreline. I didn't actually know it was 9-0 was the first ever in Ligue 1. PSG are the first side to win times this early in the season, so March 13th. Remember the date if ever PSG is in this sort of form, and especially if the other contenders are in this sort of form as well next season or maybe a few seasons down the line. They're the first side to win after 30 match days in a 38 match day league, and that's some pretty good records. I'm still quite disappointed that PSG have lost a league game at Lyon, which basically they won't have that kind of record of going the whole season unbeaten, and I think there's still something to be gained when you're going to look at the table after 38 match days. How many points will PSG have? Right now they've got 77. I think it's a given they'll get at least 80 points. I do reckon they will win at least once more, even though they are already champions. But go further. Show the football record books that PSG this PSG is the best team in the history of Ligue 1. Gain 90 points or maybe even 100. Of course, there's Champions League to worry about now, and that's basically the only thing they have got to worry about. I don't really have any doubts that PSG will win the League Cup final against Lille. Coupe de France, I'm quite confident as well. But moreover, just going all over the performances of the players, they were actually professionals, and especially the experienced ones like Thiago Silva, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Thiago Motta, who did make his mistakes, and the season is not over, and I reckon we'll talk about his game at Chelsea on Wednesday, I think it was.
Mm.
But they just showed that they were professionals, and there's a way they played, the ways they started the games, that they took to the pitch. It was completely different from last season, completely different, and which is why most French football experts are applauding PSG being crowned so early, and not doing the obvious thing is to say that's because Ligue 1 is poor, and PSG aren't all that. I mean, PSG are all that. That's I think that's a message that needs to be said when you win a title 8 games before the end.
Let's talk about that 9-0 a little bit closely. Eric, like we said, it's the biggest away victory ever, and while Troyes aren't necessarily the most difficult of opponents, it's still a real emphatic result that sends a statement, even in the Champions League, that Paris Saint-Germain are not going to take their foot off the gas.
Yeah, well, to be fair, Troyes' defending was... I've only seen the highlights, but Troyes' defending was absolutely shocking. I don't think there's really much you can say about this. I mean, this was, for a league that has a reputation as being defensively solid, this was, I'm tempted to say, the worst I've ever seen in a Ligue 1 match between two professional teams. It was errors from the center backs, a red card from the substitute Karaboué. It just, top to bottom, just shocking defending. I think that PSG were obviously fired up, seeing that Monaco had drawn, and they had a chance to win the league in advance of playing them next weekend. But honestly, I think this is more down to just awful defending from Troyes than it really is from PSG. I mean, PSG are always going to create chances, but if you go on and allow them more than they're already going to get, I mean, the result's only going to go one way, even in such an emphatic fashion.
Let's talk about their season overall. I mean, they have a plus 62 goal difference at the moment, Philip. So they've really turned on the style. They've scored plenty of goals. They've not conceded very many. It's just been a real efficient season for the Parisians, hasn't it?
Yes. At the end of last season, you were thinking, aren't they going to get bored with that kind of success? Because PSG are quite unique in its proposition in Europe. The only other side I can think of is Bayern Munich, and I really do believe that this season has been the season where PSG have become the Bayern Munich of France. Is a side that is probably not as ruthless, but I think they're definitely on the right way. They want to win every single game. They want to have the best players. And they want. This is only the beginning of what Al Khelaifi, the owner, wants to do with the club. What is really needs to be pointed out is the acquisition of Angel Di Maria, by far Ligue 1's player of the season. I know the season is not over yet, but he really has injected a lot of creativity and a lot of positive inside the ranks. I think he will remain as the guy who made PSG not just go to the pitch and win a game boringly like like last season, but just trying to be motivated and to be decent to watch in a way. I'm not saying that every single game was decent to watch, but with Di Maria was definitely better than last season. Cavani has played better with Di Maria. Ibrahimovic has really loved his crosses. Not to mention the one at Chelsea. You know, you really have to pull your hat off to actually PSG making an acquisition. I was one of them who was saying, yeah, you know, why buy him? We already have Lavezzi and stuff like that. But he really is a different class, and he really needs to be thanked for PSG winning the league so early and playing so well in general. And it's not over.
Eric, do you think Di Maria has been the key to that step up in quality that we've seen from Paris Saint-Germain this season?
I think he's one of three keys. If we look at this team and the way they've been set out by Laurent Blanc, I mean, he's retained the same 4-3-3 that he used last year. Thiago Motta was rumored to leave in the summer. He ended up staying. But for me, the three keys are, in addition to Di Maria, who I think gives PSG not only more of an attacking bent, but more of an ability to track back and work from the front. We saw how instrumental he was in Real Madrid's Champions League win in 2013-14, and he's back to that same form after having a poor season in Manchester last year. So I think that not only is he giving more to the attack, he's giving more to the defense, and he's giving more in terms of attitude, in terms of being a proven winner, someone who's willing to work and be a versatile player who can be not only a creative spark, but someone who can show the right attitude defensively for this team. The other two factors, though, that I would point to, I don't think they've been mentioned as much for me. One is the fact that Lucas Moura is starting big matches ahead of Edinson Cavani, which I think is incredibly important. We saw, particularly against Chelsea, how important his motor and his energy were in terms of giving a creative balance to PSG's attack. They can really function well cutting inside, and more can really function well cutting inside and playing off of a more static Ibrahimovic, and they seem to really develop a nice chemistry. We saw that quite a bit upon Moura's arrival, but he seemed to have fallen off the map. But now this front three, in the absence of Cavani, I know he played at the weekend and did well, but again, he missed a penalty. I think that for the biggest matches, they now have a front three that can really stack up against pretty much any in the world besides the two Spanish teams, Real Madrid and Barcelona. And thirdly, obviously, though he's not with the team at the moment, I think that the form of Serge Aurier this season has really also been an important key at how electric and dynamic he is getting forward. It remains to be seen how his return to the team is going to pan out, but I really do think that PSG remain a true contender for the Champions League when he's with the squad. So it's not only the arrival of Di Maria, but it's Blanc being given the chance to have free reign to put this team together as he sees fit. I feel like that wasn't necessarily the case last season in a lot of matches, particularly in positioning with playing Cavani on the left in big matches. Again, he's never the sort of dynamic player you want as part of a front three in a 4-3-3. But because of his wages, because of the fee that was paid for him, I believe there was a certain level of expectation that he played on the biggest stages. But I think this season we're seeing Blanc really come into his own as a manager who can assert his control over the squad as he sees fit in a given match. And let's face it, he's yet to really make a misstep. The only really significant loss that PSG have had this season was against Real Madrid in the Champions League, and that was, really a freak happenstance. I think they more than held their own over two matches in that. So I think those three changes and the level of autonomy that Blanc's been given this season, the confidence he seems to be coaching with, has really made the difference for me.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you. Playing Lucas in those big games seems to have really helped. I mean, especially in that Chelsea game, I thought he gave them an extra sort of edge. But there is one man we've failed to mention fully yet, and that's Zlatan Ibrahimovic. We've mentioned he scored 27 goals this season, plenty of assists, banging form, but it does sound as if he's hinting towards leaving in the summer, Philip, with him saying that you would have to replace the Eiffel Tower with a statue of himself. That would convince him fully to stay with the club. How big of a blow would it be if he does leave?
Just one thing going back on Lucas. I do agree wholeheartedly with the two other points Vic made, especially about Oye. He's been sensational. He's done a stupid mistake. It seems that the two parties can still be working together, even though we don't have the confirmation. But on Lucas, I do believe that he does. Once again, Di Maria has to be thanked partially for his better form. But I do agree that at the start of the season, Lucas was not playing well, and I do reckon that he saw a competition and he saw, okay, I have to up my game, and kudos, he did. Regarding Zlatan Ibrahimovic, those comments he made, I mean, just before I think it was on Saturday or maybe Friday, saying that PSG didn't exist before the Qataris bought them. That's just a huge slap in the face to historical PSG fans like myself, where the club was basically counting on youth development, on relatively cheap transfers. I'm talking about something like 30 to 40 million a window. And whereas now it's much more than that. And when I say that, I really do mean 20 million than 40 million. So he's been better, but I'm not. I think he's just want that last big fat wage season, which he is going to get. Maybe it's a strategy, I don't know, but with the season he's just made, there's no way that he won't get his contract extended. And besides, I have no idea who he would play for at the very top level if he wasn't playing with PSG. I honestly don't know. I don't think that Manchester City will take a punt on him, especially with Guardiola there. Real Madrid, I highly doubt it. And that leaves maybe Bayern Munich. I really don't think so either. I just don't know what. I only see just one solution there. I don't know about you guys, but I really have. I just think it's just he'll be there next season, no problem.
It is an interesting one. I mean, it clearly seems like he's got something in the pipeline in his mind that he can do. So, and there will be many clubs that will be happy to have him. Maybe not at that top table, maybe, but I'm pretty sure the wages in England might suffice him a little bit. But Eric, what are your thoughts about him possibly leaving? And added to that, what could PSG do should he leave to replace him?
That's really tough. I mean, at the end of last season, going on the second part of your question first,
yep.
That's really tough to think about. At the end of the last season, I had sort of thought in my head how this team could be recalibrated to function around Cavani as a focal point, given the fee that was paid for him, and given the way he was continually starting matches, even when he played out of position. Such was the need that the hierarchy at PSG felt to put him on the pitch. But now I honestly don't know. I think as good as Cavani, as excellent as Cavani was at Napoli a few seasons ago, I really started to have questions about whether he can really function as a focal point of a Champions League winning team. So I think, with that being the case, I think that were Ibrahimovic to depart, I think that this team would need to go out and sign a top quality striker, whether that's the likes of Karim Benzema, the likes of Robert Lewandowski, maybe Paulo Dybala. I think has had a great season for Juventus. I don't know how likely he would be to move given his age and the fact that Juventus paid a big fee for him. But I think that PSG would need to replace Ibrahimovic with a more active, mobile striker, and I think that would really allow this team to continue, albeit in a slightly different style, but maintain the same level of success and having the same potential to be the force that they have been, both domestically and in Europe. I think would be the necessary way to go about things. I think Cavani could also conceivably be offloaded as funding towards that. But again, that being said, there really aren't that many top-level strikers who could conceivably be bought and sold. I mean, we have obviously the MSN, but I don't see any of them going anywhere from Barcelona. But outside of that, there's not a whole lot. Antoine Griezmann's another player who's been rumored to be moving, but I think unless he's got promises of success at the very, very top level at a club other than Atletico Madrid, I don't see him moving either. So
He's more than a winger, isn't he?
He does play up front for Atletico. He can play out
Oh, he does
wide,
play
but
up front.
he does play as a striker as Atletico. Yeah.
So he could play for France.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that's got to be PSG's. With Ibrahimovic's wages potentially coming off the bill and the sale of Cavani, there's going to be money there to do it, but the question is, does the market have anything that can bear that out? And I've got doubts about that. So I think for that reason, the club really do need to hang on to Ibrahimovic. There isn't a ready-made replacement for him, and there seems to be a real coherence about their play this season. There hasn't necessarily been around him, despite their success in the league and despite his individual success. I think that at present, PSG are functioning as more of a team than they ever really have. And even Ibrahimovic with another season on his legs, aged as they are, I still think, given the prohibitive transfer costs that they might have to pay, I still think that he's the best option next season, even at his age.
I'll tell you what I'd do, Nathan. I'd swap with Ibrahimovic for Martial. I'd be okay with that.
I wouldn't.
No.
I wouldn't be at all. I think I'm going to mention a name here that I think might be a ready-made replacement, and he's ready to leave in Romelu Lukaku. I mean, he's a big target centre forward that's able to hold the ball up. He has the added incentive. He's certainly got more pace than Ibrahimovic has. He's turned up in a lot more bigger games nowadays for Everton. He scored. I think he scored 17. I want to say it might be 18 this season in the Premier League. That's not including a few goals in the FA Cup, and I think he'd be a really excellent addition. He's ready for that kind of step up back to a Champions League team after his spell at Chelsea. I think
that's a great shout.
Yeah, his age at 22. He's positive that he's got that room to grow with the club. Possibly, and like you say, if they sell Cavani, they could then reinvest that money in improving the extra bits of the squad. That might be strange to say, but
it's a terrific shout, because I always thought that his only strength over Lukaku was his strengths, but he's proven this season that he's much more mobile than I thought he would turn out. I mean, he was always described as the new Didier Drogba, which was way off the mark, and basically putting unnecessary amount of pressure on someone so young. But it is true. I mean, I haven't watched Everton as often as you have, Nathan, obviously, but it really, from what I did see, it seems to me that he's not just this donkey guy who's very, very slow and just a good header of the ball. He is quite good, and he is a typical old-fashioned centre forward. I don't really see him playing anywhere else on the pitch. No. I don't think. I think that's a great shout. But then I mean, how much would a Harry Kane or Jamie Vardy cost? But I have no illusion that those two would leave the Premiership.
No, I think Jamie Vardy, in my personal opinion, because he's 29, I think it's unlikely that he would get the move to anywhere else in the summer, even if he did have that interest, especially at a price tag that Leicester would want for him. But
which I don't think he has. I mean, I really don't believe he has the interest of playing abroad.
No, and
it's almost too late, which is a bit sad, for future. I'm not going to say Premiership winner, because all the Leicester fans will be killing me for jinxing this evening's game. But no, I just don't see it. And for Harry Kane, it's the same thing. It's just something about English players in Ligue 1. I mean, those who do come to Ligue 1 are just not very good. It's like, I mean, I've got no... It's not that they're not very good. They're just medium at best, like Joey Barton, Joe Coles. They were really not at the pinnacle of their career when they joined Lille and Marseille respectively. And they did some wonderful comments, like Joey Barton calling Ligue 1 boring.
It's nice to know, isn't it? But that's the thing with English players and foreign football, full stop. But I did want to talk about Laurent Blanc a little bit. He's been mentioned in English papers as possibly being a target for Manchester United as well. Philip, he's had an excellent season, But with that amount of pressure that does come as PSG manager, could he be tempted to leave in the summer?
No, absolutely not. I think he's no. He's. I mean, he's got. I think he's done the hardest part at PSG. He may be the only thing I am fearing is that he may start getting bored of playing Ligue 1 sides every week, and that he may want to try his luck against tougher oppositions than just playing the Champions League and having a couple of exciting games, a few games in March, April, and see if he can win the Champions League with PSG. The thing is, I'm not really sure the board will let him go, because I have no idea who could take the job. There's Mourinho, but I just don't believe that at all. I think PSG must be, in a way, applauded for sticking with him, but I do believe that they stuck with him because there was nobody else. Because if you see in which position the Chelsea's, Manchester United's, and Manchester City's are, you have Manchester United, who did not sack their manager because there was nobody else, or rather because they didn't want to take their chance with Mourinho. You have Chelsea, you have no idea who the manager is going to be, and Manchester City, they're getting their, shall we say, sarcastic quotation marks, dream manager in Guardiola, and we don't know how much that's going to last. Probably a couple of seasons, and that's it. And it just goes all the same way. I mean, there really aren't that many managers who are, shall we say, suited for such positions, and PSG have made Blanc as that kind of candidate. And I think PSG are in a good position because they've got a good manager who they now trust, and he still got quite a lot of work to do in winning the dressing room. But those few years has been a superb experience for him, and I just don't see him leaving, at least not this summer. I would say maybe in 2018, but that's even being very, very pessimistic. But no, I just don't see it. And besides, I mean, I've no idea who would take the job from that position. Even though arguably it's not that difficult a job, but he's still got to win the Champions League sometime.
Just very quickly as well, Eric, let's talk about Blanc's job, really. You mentioned him shifting formation. Do you think he's really earned his stripes this season by adjusting the team to make them a little bit more cohesive?
Yeah, I think that I still struggle a little bit over the purchase and use of Stambouli. It seems like he did fairly well at the weekend against weak opposition, but I really don't. I'm still not a fan of swapping him for Cabaye, just in terms of what Cabaye could give the team going forward. But other than that, I think that things have been excellent. There doesn't seem to be the sort of hegemony in the dressing room that floats around the likes of Ibrahimovic and Thiago Silva that we struggle with in past seasons. And for example, in the persistence of playing certain players over others, the likes of Christophe Jallet and Gregory Vanderveel being used in certain ways that didn't necessarily seem to make sense given their level of ability. But that seems to be gone now, and it seems as if this team is really functioning as a cohesive whole, both on and off the pitch, with the exception of Serge Aurier's actions. And again, that's down to the player as an individual, not the manager. But I think that he's also did really well this season in developing Adrien Rabiot. I think he's really starting to come into his own as the potential player we've started to see. I had questions on Wednesday about him starting, against Chelsea, but he acquitted himself rather well, goal or otherwise. I think he's really starting to blossom, and this team is showing that perhaps it can really be a sustainable project. I think there's going to be work to be done down the road in a year or two with the ages of Thiago Mata and Thiago Silva, but all things being equal, I think that Blanc has shown that he's a manager who's in good position to lead this team forward. And is able to negotiate a locker room full of egos and to make them function as a cohesive team on the pitch. I mean, let's face it, this wasn't always the case. Going back to the days of Ancelotti and to Antoine Camboire, the talent was obviously there, but it wasn't functioning as a team. It was more of a collection of individuals, and I don't have very much sense of that, particularly in the biggest stages of PSG this year. And I think that really is down to Blanc. I think that he was a good manager during his earlier spell at Bordeaux, for example, but I think really has to be considered top class, given the performances he's received or he's delivered on the biggest stages, particularly in the group stages against Real Madrid this year. I would have to argue that PSG were the better in those two matches, for example, against a club that is generally considered to be one of the world's top 2 or 3. I think that PSG really have to be considered in that same echelon as Bayern, Barca, and Real Madrid and Atletico, and that's down to the improvements that Blanc has made and continues to make.
One last thing about one thing about, because I think we're going to change topic now, about Thiago Motta. I do believe this is the time that he needs to we need to begin to think about phasing him out, as I really do believe that sometimes he does seem careless and extremely slow to close players down, and that has cost first of all the defeat at Lyon, a terrible performance at Marseille. I was quite worried whenever Willian came up against him on Wednesday evening, and I do believe that the club should be looking for someone to replace him as some kind of a trequartista, so just to sit in front of the defence but organise a play from deep. That's what I think Blanche should be. Well, that's what I think this summer should be about. But that's me.
Yeah, that might have been the reason why they tried to buy someone like Stambouli this summer. Very quickly, we'll talk about the qualification through the Champions League. Philip, they got through in the end, but it wasn't exactly the cleanest and easiest of performances.
No, and it was a bit like one of those performances at Marseille and Lyon. I thought PSG were not very good in midfield in the first half, and really could have done better. It really should have been a bit more comfortable, especially in the first half. In the second half, it was much more solid, and I don't really see. I don't remember Chelsea being dangerous aside from when Willian had the ball and when he was up against Thiago Motta. Willian was sensational. I mean, Chelsea really do need to build the whole side around him next season. But you saw in the second half you felt that PSG were in control of the midfield, and then that second goal basically killed the tie-off, thankfully. And this has basically been some kind of growth against Chelsea, where at first it was Chelsea scared shitless of them. They won the Champions League not too long ago. Their players are just world-class players who are experienced, who have won the Champions League before, and we're only little PSG trying to make our mark, and with immense pressure on Blanc to knock them out already. That was the first season, defeat on away goal. Second season, win in extra time, which was great, and now this time win 4-2 on aggregate. I mean, yeah, there were some moments where it was quite worrying, especially the way again the midfield was protecting the back four. But when you look at it and look at it well, it's still a great achievement to knock Chelsea out. And to basically make them an inferior opponent to us than they were 3 years ago, which is great, really, because that's basically one of Europeans' great clubs, which is basically has the same strategy as we do, like having a sugar daddy, having lots and lots of cash, and whose sole aim is to win the Champions League. So that's quite impressive, really. And the club has to go from strength to try and beat someone even bigger. And I'm thinking Real Madrid.
Eric, just very quickly again. I don't know if you felt the same as I did, but once PSG scored that first goal, it seems like they slacked a little and allowed Chelsea back into the game, really, didn't it?
Yeah, and it was frustrating to see. But again, let's face it, Chelsea are still a top quality team. You're not going to dominate, even given their struggles, the talent they have on display, even with the injuries they've had. Pardon me, this season. You're not going to dominate a match start to finish. I think what's most impressive though is that PSG really weathered that storm and came out on top, and then they themselves turned out an even more impressive performance in the second half and did what they needed to do. And again that's a mark of Blanc improving as a manager and getting his team to pull together and play as comprehensively as they have.
And I covered that game, and I thought it just, like you say, it was frustrating that they did sack off, because you knew that second goal for PSG would absolutely kill the tie, and it did. They scored. Chelsea were dead and buried in the water, and even with half an hour left, the game was really over. But great week, win the league, Champions League qualification, can't get any better than that. But we will move on now to just a few hours before this podcast, Bordeaux announced the sacking of Willy Sagnol. The former French international was relieved of his duties after their 4-0 defeat against second bottom Toulouse at the weekend, and they've just won once in their last 8 games. Philip, was this the right decision?
I think the 4-0 derby defeat was the last straw. Again, I don't see. We've talked about Bordeaux many times before on this show. I don't see much strategy behind what Trio is wanting to achieve, where the club is going. I think that there are a lot of reports saying that Sagnol never really got that dressing room backing. And again, we've talked about it before. The tactics that he employed were just not good at all. Playing players out of position. And I really do feel that the players haven't helped them in that game at Toulouse. 2 of the goals conceded were penalties, so you got the first goal after 5 minutes. But it still was hurt a lot for every Bordeaux fan to lose in that fashion. To Toulouse, I don't think they'll go down. They already have 38 points from 30 games, but I'm not even sure if this is the way forward for Bordeaux, because they took an ex-player of theirs who is quite experienced. He did manage the under-21s, and it just goes to show how hard it is. I mean, Makelele tried the same thing at Bastia, and he actually did worse, because he was sacked not long after starting. But Trio's solution is to bring in Ulrich Ramé and Mathieu Chalmé. I don't really see much difference there. I think the only thing it will do is maybe bring a different kind of motivation for those last 8 games, but that's about it. And the club still needs to work on its youth developments, and there's still a lot of shall we say conveniency around the place, where not a lot of work is being done, unfortunately. So I don't feel for I mean, I do feel a bit for Sagnol, but I reckon he'll get another job quite soon. I think Bordeaux is probably one of the toughest jobs to take theirs out there.
Eric, where did Sagnol come up short this season? I mean, we tipped Bordeaux earlier in the season to be a potential European contender.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. I'm not reminding you, but I also backed them when they won a couple of weeks ago. So
no, I'll stick by what I
we'll
had.
both
I
stick
think,
by that sword.
No, I think coming into the season, you had to feel really optimistic. I mean, they'd done well in the transfer window to bring in a lot of exciting young players. They had the likes of Diabate and Lamine Sané coming back from injury. Yeah, they lost Mariano, but there was still a lot of reason to be optimistic about this team. The way Diego Roland had kicked on, what we'd seen from Crivelli towards the tail end of last season, I think there was a lot of reason to be optimistic about Bordeaux this year. And it just, through a constellation of injuries, I think have to be factored into this as well. Through a constellation of injuries that they've had, and as well as the chopping and changing of Sanyol, he didn't seem to really settle on. He couldn't really seem to settle on a particular tactical setup. He couldn't really seem to settle on a particular starting 11, and I think that the team really suffered for that, especially with a lot of younger players. I think that the confidence that the confidence issues that those younger players will have suffered being in and out of the lineup to such an extent, I think will have had some potential negative effect on their performances. And I think a lot of it's that. I think Sanyol came out and showed himself to be someone who could be innovative tactically last season, playing that 4-3-1-2 with Kazri behind the likes of Kiese and Roland, and I think that worked really well. But this season, he didn't seem to have as much of a handle on things tactically, and that coupled with the suspension/injuries of Pablo and Palois, I think just it was too much to overcome. I think that you can also make a case that the absence of Carasso, I think, is a negative as well. Just his leadership at the back. I know he's aging a little bit and isn't the keeper he maybe was 4 or 5 years ago, but that can't be discounted either, particularly in terms of, again, a younger squad that's going to need a leadership character to look to, and aren't seeing that in a lot of other places on the pitch. I mean, let's face it, the more experienced members of this team either A, haven't been there that long, or B, are the likes of a Nicolas Maurice Bellet, who I wouldn't, is a fine player, but I wouldn't necessarily look to as being a leadership figure. Particularly with the likes of Diabate missing as much time as he has. So I think that it's not necessarily an indictment of Sanyol as a manager in terms of his future. He's, I think, 37, 38 years old, but I think that this job, with the expectations it had, with how many young players he had, I think just came a little bit too soon in his career. Personally, I would have rather seen a more experienced manager with a better record of developing players, building on things in a more fundamental way. The Europa League campaign, which I think well taken well, Bordeaux took things seriously there, as far as I could tell, was also an unnecessary distraction. Their season starting as early as it did, and playing so many extra matches, both in that competition and in the Coupe de France, I don't think did the team any services either. So I'm not saying that Sanyol's a bad manager again. I think that he just wasn't the right man for the job at the time. Personally, I would rather see someone like, again, this is a manager who I really like and I think got a really raw deal from PSG, but Antoine Kombouar, I think he's really had a good record of developing youth at other places he's been, and I think he'd make a great replacement for Sanyol come the summer once his situation with Lens is able to be dealt with in a smoother manner. Pardon me.
Mm. You hit the nail on the head with the goalkeeping situation there. I think people don't. I mean, I didn't pick up on it when Nathan asked me the question, but you lose Kazri and you lose Cive, and you actually lose Carasso not because you sold him, but because he's injured, and you don't buy anyone in particular except Troyes' goalkeeper Bernard Denis, who is absolutely shocking. I mean, he's just not helping the defense at all. He really is. I'm not far saying he is the league's worst goalkeeper, and I have no idea why Bordeaux went for him. Why not give Prior a run of games? I mean, it's not like Bordeaux were going to go for European football anyway. Why get someone from Troyes? I mean, it did work well for Angers, who got Le Tellier, but this really has not worked out at all. Weird choices.
Yeah, and the thing is Bernardoni's maybe shown glimpses when he was at Troyes that he could potentially be a good keeper in the future, but it looks like a deer in headlights at the moment. I mean, yeah, the worrying thing is a lot of the goals seem to be his fault, which is horrible to say, but it's when your defense is already struggling.
It's true though. I mean,
yeah. I mean, well, you look at the last 8 to 10 games, they've conceded 5 at Lyon. And Eric, you did warn me about this, so I will happily validate your concerns about the defence that you mentioned about a month ago. Of they conceded 3 at Lyon, 4 at Saint-Etienne, 4 against Nantes, 2 against Guingamp, 4 against Reims, and 4 against Toulouse at the weekend. So that's relegation form. You can't keep coming from 3, 4, 5 goals down to start a game because
I think Bernardoni has conceded 15 goals in his 7 games at Bordeaux, and that's in a league where defenders are supposed to be good and goalkeepers are supposed to be good.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'll draw up some kind of chart for next week's show to show how horrible his stats are, because it just no.
So Philip, where did the club go from here?
That's a good question. Probably get more experienced manager. Hopefully keep this strategy of giving youth its chance. Not that they have a choice. But that's the only thing they can do. But I don't think that Ramé and Chalmier is going to work. I think it's a stopgap, and to get the Bordeaux youth who did grow up watching Ramé and Chalmier play and actually win a league or two under Elie Bopen and Laurent Blanc. Get them motivated till the end of the season, and probably get a more experienced guy for next season. And Kumbar is a great shout, yeah.
And I agree with that, Eric. It sounds like that could be an interesting one. But I thought I would finish this talk with saying, what would you think, Eric, that Willy Sagnon might do from here? Might he return to maybe the French setup, the youth setup, or try and find another job in Liga?
I think he'd be better suited to go to a big club and be an assistant and bide his time and learn a little bit more. Maybe particularly, one with an emphasis on developing youth. Maybe somewhere in Spain, maybe Lyon, somewhere where he can have firsthand a better understanding of understanding how to develop youth. I think particularly if he wants to have a future in Ligue 1, how to handle and develop young players is all but essential. Just because of the way that the finances are in the French game, and the way that France is continually a fountain of development for a lot of the world's best young players, or get their start in France either professionally or in academies. That Sagnol, if he wants to succeed in his native country, has to look within himself and take a better understanding of how that operates at the club level. I know he was coming from the French national team setup, but how it functions on a club level in terms of managing a player's ego week to week and getting them to perform week in and week out is a different animal altogether. And I think that is a set of experience he was lacking. And while he may have gained some of that from his time at Bordeaux, I think that he needs to go elsewhere and allow himself to be someone's number 2 or a member of the coaching squad. I mean, let's face it, there's other former players who have taken a similar tack, like Bruno Genesio, who I think is really doing well at Lyon at the moment, for example, or Remy Gard. Again, that's coming from my own experience seeing them as managers. But Genesio in particular didn't have that much success when he first became a head coach. He went to Lyon. He worked under a variety of managers for 10 years, and now I think that he's got this team clicking in a way that few have expected, given the way that they were performing towards the end of Fournier's reign. So that's just one example, but I think that's the type of path that Sagnol needs to follow should he want to succeed in a meaningful way.
And it will be maybe the best for both of them at this moment in time to sort of go separate ways, but we wish them both the best. We finished this evening with Toulouse probably worrying that that big win against their rivals, would have helped them push against the relegation fight, but probably ended up annoyed that everyone else around them seems to be picking up points. That third relegation place looks to be a straight fight now between Gazélec, Reims and Guingamp, but out of those 3 teams, Philip, who will fade in these final 8 games and be relegated to Ligue 2?
I'm not sure. I would say Gazélec. I may have been wrong about Reims. I am convinced that it's not between Guingamp, Reims and Gazélec. It's between Guingamp and Gazélec. Reims played superbly well at Monaco. They've got a good goalkeeper. I like the way the 3-4-1-2 actually fits the actual players. It's not just a matter of saying, okay, I'm going to play three at the back. No, it actually fits the players quite well. I think that Charbonnier is quite comfortable playing behind the two strikers. Diego is, I believe, he's best suited to being that left alone on the left hand side, where he has the whole left hand side for him, and being a left winger. His balls to Bifuma were pretty good at Monaco. Even though Monaco didn't defend particularly well. Bifuma is a great player. It really is. He was a bit unlucky not to put more chances away. But to me, Reims have far too much quality. The defending is good. In midfield, it's quite solid. Charbonnier is a great link between defense and attack. It's a shame actually that he played so deep at some point, because his back pass led to Wagnerov's second goal. But no, they've got quality all around. And for Guingamp, I don't know. Guingamp are not in good form, but they hadn't won in 5 before that game against Saint-Etienne. But I'm not sure if I can make that Saint-Etienne's fault rather than Guingamp's aim. If you see what I mean, in a way that Saint-Etienne are absolutely knackered from their season. I'm not sure the motivation is still there, and I think they're there for the taking for the time being. Maybe the international break will be good for them, but right now they just seem like a knackered lot, and that Guingamp win against them was more about Saint-Etienne being poor, but that's probably being unfair on Guingamp. But they did, they are not playing. They're not having a good season, Guingamp, and I certainly reckon it's between them and Gazélec. Gazélec, on their part, they did win a football game in 2016. So their first win. This was their first win since December 20th, which was at home to Lyon. A great win it was. So yeah. In the end, I do reckon Gazette will go down, unfortunately.
Eric, who do you think's the favourite out of those three to be heading for the
Out of
drop?
those three, yeah, I'd have to agree with Nathan. I think Gazélec, but I don't think we can count Montpellier out of this either. I know that they.
Cardinal had a great game on at the weekend. He really stopped Montpellier going up. I would say Montpellier actually deserved to beat Nice at the weekend, but Cardinal had an extraordinary game. And then Bernard, took some.
I didn't see the highlights from that one, but I still struggle to see where Montpellier are going to get the goals week in and week out. They look better under Ants, but I'm still not convinced. I still think this team lacks a consistent go-to scorer. I mean, Ninga's been a fantastic find. Don't get me wrong. Kevin Berrigo is back. Brian Dabo's had some good matches, but I wouldn't count them out of this either. But again, out of the three, yeah, I think Gazélec probably looked the weakest, given Reims' improvement playing this new 3-man back line.
Boudebouz is a good great. Sorry.
Sorry, I was going to say, and Guingamp just have too much going forward for me with Privat, Coco, Jimmy Briand. I think has been a great signing. He's applied himself magnificently well. He had some issues with attitude, I think, during his time at Lyon, mostly due to how he's being deployed. I mean, he was a French international at one point, but I think that he's really taken to his role as being a leader within this Guingamp squad. It's again a veteran team, and I think that's helping them out as well.
Yeah, I'm looking at the fixtures. It's going to be an interesting week for Guingamp. You've just mentioned that they've got a really potent attacking force, but their next 2 games are away to Reims and at home to Montpellier. So they've got an interesting couple of weeks to come up in and around that winter break that will split those two games. So they could be absolutely vital, especially that game against Reims. I mean, a win for Guingamp in that one puts them 5 points clear of them at a crucial time, and then it starts getting interesting. I agree with Philip. I think and you, Eric. I think out of the three, it's probably Gazalek that have the least. I mean, Reims again in the early game against Monaco, I thought they really performed. I think they gave away 2 silly goals, which is the real disappointment because they could have really got 3 points from that game. I thought again, Nicolas de Preville showed just how good of a footballer he is. I mean, if I'm Marseille or something like that, I think you have to take a really good long look at him in the summer because he's just creating goals at an alarming rate at a club like Reims that don't have real, genuine firepower. I know Charbonnier's been better and Thierry Buffon has been good, but at the same time he just seems like a running engine at sometimes rather than an eloquent footballer that adds to the group. But
so I wanted to ask you guys, if you noticed on the site this morning, Christian put up a thing naming the under-19 squad. Dembele is not in that. Going away from relegation talk. I wonder if that means a potential call-up for Les Espoirs or the full squad. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on that. Or
I'd say Les Espoirs.
Yeah, at the very least, yeah.
Yeah. It would be great if we could get the game against Russia. It would be great, but I don't think so. I don't see it. But yeah, I think for Les Espoirs definitely. It's still extremely young. I mean, we can't really be talking about it in this manner already. But there's so much potential there, and I don't think it's much use for him to be in the under-18s. I mean, he should be at the Espoirs straight away. I mean, he is playing for a team that is 5th in the league, which is not bad.
And what I would say to that is, from what I've seen with him this season and the scouts that were present in that with his hat-trick against Nantes, I wouldn't be entirely surprised if he's called up to the full side for that friendly. But simply because that's the game we play nowadays of younger players. But it's at least the under-21s. I can't imagine that he would have been left out completely for anything. He's in excellent form, isn't he? And I mean, we'll probably talk about this a little bit more about the international break, about the number of interesting players in really good form across Europe.
There are quite a few.
Yeah, so there is plenty to think about and keep in mind during that. But going very quickly back to the relegation fight, Philip, is there any hope for Gazalek at all? Is there any glimmer of hope? I mean, the remaining fixtures, just got them up here, at Nice, Saint-Etienne, who've slipped, a little Angers, who've slipped. Or is it just too much to overcome at this point in the season?
I mean, they did beat Nice in the corresponding fixtures. Saint-Etienne are not playing very well. Angers' season is basically finished. They seem completely uninterested in their game at Bastia, at Nantes. Lille Bastia are also quite down there, but they've got 40 points already, so it could be close. Yeah, Lyon away is going to be extremely tough, especially since Lyon will be after second now. Come to PSG, it could happen. You never know. PSG maybe in a Champions League semi-finals the next day, and will probably play their fourth side, or maybe the under-18s at Reims. You just don't know. And last game at Lorient, I still don't think it's going to happen, but I think they'll put everything in it. Fail eventually, but really by not that much. I think, because when you see Guingamp, they are playing Monaco and Nice in their last 3 games, which is not easy, and they still have to host PSG, even though they are champions. I mean, it's not hardly a banker home win. So, I still believe it's between those two. I just think that Guingamp will just edge it.
And just to say that both Montpellier and Reims still have to play Troyes again, which might almost be a guaranteed 3 points at this moment in time. So that buffer might just see those okay, and possibly that, like I mentioned earlier, that game at the weekend between Rats and Guingamp will be absolutely enormous for both clubs. A win for either side there could be real momentum just at the right time. But that's all we have for this week. My thanks to Eric and Philip, and to all of you listening at home this evening. Abianto, and enjoy your week. Goodbye.